Now, after just 1 month of war, almost a quarter of Ukraine's population has been displaced. And while millions have fled across the border, there are now more than 6.5 million internally displaced people still in Ukraine. Many have moved to towns and cities close to the border, away from the major conflict zones. Louise Miner reports on how some families are surviving in one such area on the border with Hungary.
At first glance, there's no sign of war in Berov in Ukraine. Things look pretty normal. But many of the children you see here playing in the town's main square were recently living in Kharkiv, Mykolaiv or Mariupol. Their families have fled the fighting in search for peace near the Hungarian border. Many are now living in schools and dormitories, like these ones. Ophelia and her daughter came from Kyiv and hoped to survive the war here rather than in another neighbouring country.
We don't want to go abroad in any way. We want to wait until the war is over and then we want to return home.
Children from conflict zones are treated by a psychologist and they have art lessons. Their artwork is then sent to the soldiers fighting on the front lines. The session helps them to process the events of the past few weeks.
Some children, unfortunately, are unable to communicate after the terrible events. I don't even know what they went through.
There have been several air raids in Berov recently, but not even one bombing, so the locals don't bother with sirens anymore. However, schools have switched to distance learning.
What I think is most defining is the uncertainty. We don't know if the war will arrive here or not, and if it does, when, and then what to do.
Locals say at least a quarter of the town's Hungarian community has already moved to Hungary. Many people don't fear the fighting, but instead they fear being made conscripts. Louise Miner, Euronews.